'39 comes along, and what happened? Prohibition. Prohibition comes along. All of the malting and the brewing companies in the United States are in deep trouble, except for Francis Perot. He starts making medical alcohol for the federal government, and he gets a contract for it. So during 1929 and 1939 or 33 during Prohibition, he's doing okay. So now 1933 comes along, and Francis Perot already has a relationship with the federal government, so they give him a contract for 70% of everything he could pump out of this building. The federal government's going to take it, including medical alcohol and beer for the troops overseas. So that just catapulted his business sky high. Then he added the rest of the silos that we're going to be visiting, and now it gives him 1 million bushels of barley and malt storage to come in and out of this plant. The one thing he did have when he went up against these guys is 275 years of malting and brewing behind him as far as experience with his family, and that's what made all the difference. So, I'm not a brewmaster, but I can tell you a lot about the malting process and the major steps in making this. We're going to go inside the malting house right now.
You got to go to your doctor to get a prescription, right?
What's that?
You got a prescription from your doctor for medical
alcohol.
Medical alcohol.
Yeah.
Then you go to the pharmacy and fill it.
Yeah. It was a great, this was a really cool family. Okay, so in here, it's, there's going to be some dark spots, but just watch your step as we go along. There's a step and a little ramp right here.
Very different from the last time we were here.
So as I mentioned, all of this is pretty much untouched. This is pretty much the way it is outside of, we get the, we sweep the floors and things like that. But the three major processes in making malt, the first step was called steeping, S-T-E-E-P-I-N-G, steeping. And what that was is they take these big vats, and they take the barley, and they fill the vats with water, and they'd soak the barley, and it had to reach anywhere between a 4% and 45% moisture content. And what they would do is, as it was going through, they'd take samples out, and they could tell what the moisture content was in the grain, into the barley. So once it reached the right level of moisture content, then the second step was germination. So the germination took place on the second and third floors. So what they would do is bring up the barley to the germination beds, and the germination beds were false beds so that they could aeronate it. Okay, so it needed air, it needed the right temperature, and what they wanted to do was germinate it. So when that kernel of barley, as soon as it cracked, as soon as they saw green, they had to stop the process. Okay, that was the end of the germination. They didn't want it to go any further because what they wanted to do is preserve the enzymes in the kernel. And the way they did that, the third step is with the kilns. These are called kilns. And originally they were coal-fed. Later on they added natural gas after we had natural gas. But this section of the floor, you can see where it kind of comes to a V. There was a conveyor that came through here. This was coal. So the coal would come in, and these guys would take their shovels and they'd shovel coals to stoke the kilns. And that's how this part operated. I mentioned that there was 2 floors. The third floor would be the lower temperatures, and the first floor would be the higher temperatures. Now, once it went to the kilns, for the first 12 hours, it was at 90 degrees. The temperatures is where they had to keep them, so they would be up at lower temperatures on the third floor. Then the next step would be 120 degrees, and that would be for 24 to 36 hours, and the last 48 hours was at 175 degrees, and that was on the second floor with the kilns. Once that process took place, at the end of that 48 hours, now we have malt. And what happened with the malt now is it came through, and you'll see these funnels. They're actually called hoppers, these up at the top. And what they did is they would be able to operate it through doors. There were chutes up here. And this trough that you see running along, inside of it had an auger. An auger is like a big screw. and it would be turning inside, and the top part would be open, and it would send it to the very end, and when we go outside again, you'll see where the conveyor was. So once the malt was complete, went in here, sent it over to the conveyor belt, then it went next door, and then we'll talk about where it went from there. These wooden walkways are called catwalks. The men would walk up and down along these catwalks to make sure that the barley, or the malt in this case, was flowing freely, and also they could open and close all of the chutes on these hoppers. Now they had anywhere from